السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رحمة للعالمين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وبعد. فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء والطارق وما أدراك ما الطارق النجم الثاقب. وقال الله تعالى في مقام آخر: سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. صدق الله العظيم. Today we are going to continue on with our tafsir session, inshallah. And we are going to start with the Surah at-Tariq. Surah at-Tariq, for us, we have to know that we are dealing with a Makkan surah. And Makkan surahs, they entail those topics which increase one's iman, because they were revealed in the era of the Makkan phase of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we know that in the Makkan phase, there was a lot of trials and tribulations that the Muslims were undergoing, a lot of persecution and suffering. And in order to ease their pain and to console their hearts, especially the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed these surahs and these ayat to make ease for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een. And we see that the human psyche and the human mentality is that when you are going through difficulty for any type of cause, you need some light at the end of the tunnel to keep you going. Otherwise, it's going to be a very difficult journey and you may end up giving up in the long run. But how and what do we see that the Sahaba were? They were like strong mountains. They were like very firm mountains, and they were pegged into the ground. And they went through all of the hardships that were being thrown at them from all sides. And so in this surah, Surah at-Tariq, we are going to find out who are the people that are being addressed in this surah. Is it the disbelievers of Makkah? Is it Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is it the believers? Or is it the unbelievers and the believers of all time? We are going to see that the whole Qur'an is a miracle, and it is a lasting miracle for all times in this surah. So to begin with this surah, we start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. Was-sama'i wat-tariq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by the Tariq. And before we go and delve into this surah, there is a method of the mufassirun, the scholars of Tafsir, that they analyze the connection of this surah that you are undergoing with the previous surah. So what are some connections with this surah, with the previous surah, Surah Al-Buruj, that we had covered, alhamdulillah? Number one is that we need to know where this surah lies in the surahs of the Qur'an in terms of its number. Its order is that it's number 86. And Surah Buruj was number 85. And when was it revealed in terms of all of the 114 surahs of the Qur'an? What was this surah? It was surah number 36 that was revealed. And it was revealed after Surah Al-Balad, which is also in the 30th juz. And it was revealed before Surah Qamar. Surah Qamar, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commands, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. Remind them and know that the Sa'ah, the day of judgment, is coming very soon. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. And by the splitting of the moon. The moon is in the sky, and we are going to see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by the sky. But know that the Sa'ah, that day, Yawmul Maw'ud, as we had covered, Yawmul Maw'ud was-sama'i dhatil buruj wal yawmil maw'ud, that day that is promised. In this surah Al-Qamar, we see that it is that is mentioning that iqtarab, qareeb, is being brought close, very near. And this surah, was-sama'i wat-tariq, being the surah that was revealed right before Surah Qamar, is going to lead us into that momentous occasion. Because that day that is coming very near, what do we see in this surah? يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرُ. That day, all of the secrets will be exposed. And one of the themes that is going to be covered in this surah at-Tariq is that of the human being's secrets. Tonight is Friday night. And normally in this country, people engage in a lot of frivolous actions and a lot of lust and desires. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make everything exposed on that day of Yawmul Qiyamah. That all the secrets are hidden in the heart and in the nafs. In kullu nafsin lamma alayha hafiz. As we are going to see in this surah, Surah at-Tariq, that indeed in the hearts, kullu nafs, in every person, that there is a hafiz, there is a guardian, and we are going to find out who that guardian is according to a different explanation and possibilities who that hafiz is. But what is that job of that hafiz? The job of that hafiz, who will be the guardian of the records, he will be the one who writes down every single deed. Kiraman katibin, they are the ones that are writing down the deeds and the actions and our sayings and our doings and our intents, our niyyah, our intentions. All of that is being recorded. And those secrets on that day, as Umar radiallahu anhu says, that on that day, all of the secrets will be exposed. So now, this surah at-Tariq, what is its connection with Surah al-Buruj? Number one, if you notice the previous surah, when I give you the first ayah, and then also alongside with the first ayah of this surah, try to see if you can see the connection. Was-sama'i dhatil buruj. That was the previous surah. Now this surah, was-sama'i wat-tariq. Both of these surahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath, what we call a qasam. Qaf, Sin, Mim. Qasam, taking an oath, is a very serious type of statement in Arabic. It is of no joke. And especially when the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is taking an oath on something, that matter is very serious. So the sky, was-sama, that thing, that ozone layer, the air that we need to breathe, the seven heavens, the stellar stars and the cosmos and the universe and the galaxies out there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking oath on those things. Was-sama'i wat-tariq. That's number one. Number two is, in this previous surah we see, وَهُوَ يُبْدِئُ وَيُعِيدُ. It is the day when He is the one that He is yubdi wa yu'id. To Him everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins everything. He creates everything. And wa yu'id, everything will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the surah at-Tariq there's an ayah, إِنَّهُ عَلَىٰ رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. Indeed, He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is very powerful over bringing back. رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. So here there's a lot of emphasis in this verse, and mainly pointing to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very capable of bringing back. And we're going to see how. What did He make us from? مِن مَاءٍ دَافِقٍ. From a very sprouting water, from a liquid fluid, very meager and very small, to show that one of the address in this surah is those people who think they're so pomp and glory and very strong, and they get lost in the ways of life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings them back to their reality, that you are from a drop of liquid that no one even wanted to, people want to just clean off of their clothes and move away as soon as possible. What is another connection between this surah and the previous? In Surah Al-Buruj is mentioned, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ. Rather, it is a very glorified and authoritative book. It's very ennobled, Majid. And then what is it in this surah Tariq? إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلٌ فَصْلٌ. Indeed, it is a qawl, a saying, a qawlun fasl. Qawlun here is very interesting to focus on in the fact that it is the word qawlun and not al-qawl. For those who studying Arabic, you know that qawlun is a noun that is talking about general, meaning that every single concept can be derived from this surah, as we are going to see. Even the aspect of embryology is found within this surah. Some beautiful miracles of science are even found in this surah that scientists in this day and age are finding out just through their technology. Subhanallah. Another connection is that the previous ummahs was mentioned about their punishment in Surah Buruj. And in this Surah Tariq, there is a rebuke, there is a scolding to those of this ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning everyone who came after the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the ayah? فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا. So give respite, give them time, give the disbelievers time, for they are those who are seeking that they get time, and they're gonna get their time in this world, but in the hereafter everything will come to realization. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving. See, there's a question that comes out, that why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not punishing those who are evil and who harm? Why is He letting them live? They're such evil people, they're destroying the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are creating fasad in the earth and corruption on land and in sea. ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. That it has become apparent corruption on the land and the sea. So then the question comes, then why doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy these people? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being Halim, Al-Halim, being very forbearant, He is giving them respite and time, so that then they will see their ultimate fate and their reality on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Another connection is that in Surah Buruj is mentioned, قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. Curses be on those people who are the creators or the makers of the ditch, where they threw in the believers. And in this surah, إِنَّهُمْ يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. That indeed they plot, they make a very great plot, and they try to plot, but Allah, indeed their plot will fail, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plot will overcome their plot. And then here another connection is that in Surah Buruj there was a mention of Qiyamah, Day of Judgment, and also here in Surah Tariq we will see a mentioning of Qiyamah. Another connection is at the last verse of Surah Buruj, fi lawhim mahfuz, referring to the Qur'an. Fi lawhim mahfuz. It is in the sacred tablet. It is preserved, the Qur'an. And then what do we see? That is talking about, where is lawhim mahfuz? It is at the highest place of the sky. Lawhim mahfuz is very high, no one can reach it. And this surah is talking about was-sama'i wat-tariq, that is talking about skies, but lower level skies. And the last connection that we are going to mention is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's authority was mentioned in the previous surah very clearly. His arsh. Zul arshil majid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh is very majid, is very noble. And what are we, as is mentioned in this surah? We are very low. Mimma in dafiq. Know who Allah is and where His status is, and know where your beginnings are, O my brothers and sisters, O believers. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Was-sama'i wat-tariq. By the sky and the night comer. The unique thing about sama, there's a few things that we want to just focus on here. Number one is sama. There's another word called samawat. So when we look at sama, it means literally anything that is above us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking oath on the sama. And then when we see in other parts of the Qur'an, we see samawat. Samawatin tibaqa. Layers of these seven heavens. So understand this. Samawat is already encompassed in the word sama. So the seven heavens are already in the sama. So anything in the heavens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking oath on all of those. The black hole, the novas, the supernovas, the galaxies, anything that you can imagine, that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking oath on. So the question comes, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking an oath on the skies? Because when we're looking at the desert Arabs, the Bedouins, their day-to-day life and their affairs are that they're looking out into the sky. They need the sky for even navigation. So it's very crucial for them to use that as a tool for their day-to-day existence. And it's a very serious way of life for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath on something that they can realize the greatness of that. And it can connect to their minds. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wat-Tariq. What is this at-Tariq? Tariq is the night comer as mentioned in this translation. But scholars have said, especially my teacher, Mufti Rida al-Haq, he has given three examples. He says one who is beloved. And he says in an Urdu poem, Aaye jab unki raat, to aati chali jaye. Aaye jab unki yaad, to aati chali jaye. Har naqsh ma siwa ko mitati chali gaye. Referring to the one who is beloved in the thoughts. A woman at nighttime, she parades the mind and she's very engulfed in a person's mind. So at that time, as we know, that one of the themes of this surah is about the secrets. And for man, he remembers his beloved. Another meaning of Tariq is the guests that come at nighttime. And also a third example or a third meaning would be hadithat, or the occurrences that occur at night. All of those evil actions. So literally Tariq means to knock. And so a person who is coming through the tariq, to the path, he comes to his destination and he knocks on the door. And then he becomes a guest, or even sometimes it may be something good or it may be bad. So it has both connotations. And in this ayah, was-sama'i wat-Tariq, here all of the stars are being mentioned in one opinion. All of the stars. You know, we have Saturn, we have Pluto, we have Neptune, we have these planets, but then there's the stars as well. And second opinion is that it could be Suraya or Zuhul, because all stars, they come out at night. So this is another opinion. Those are names for the planets in Arabic. And like I mentioned, the Arabs, they see the stars every single night. So that's why it is very, very great for them. The next ayah. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقُ. What will make you realize what is the night comer? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attentions by a question, what we call istifhamiyah. Why? Because so it could increase in our minds and our understanding. As you see in this word istifham, in there is fahm. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word adra in the Qur'an, He gives an answer to it. But when He uses yudrika, the word yudrika, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give an answer to that. Meaning that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only the one who has knowledge of everything. We have no knowledge, O human beings. Look at, you don't even know what the Tariq is. What do you know what it is? So the stars are great, but they are not great enough that you make them gods, O Arabs, or O human beings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another ayah, فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. As is mentioned, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, as a young boy, what did he do? He tested the heavens and the earth. He tested the heavens, the sun and the moon. He went out at nighttime and he saw that جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. That literally the night was covered by these stars. And he realized that this thing that comes and goes, it cannot be the creator. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's showing us through this ayah as well, that look at what are these stars. That's what our focus is. My teacher mentioned that what are some benefits of the stars. He mentioned there's three. Number one, they lightened the night sky. And number two, there's zinatus sama. They are beautifying the sky. And number three, rujuman lish-shayateen, as is mentioned in Surah Mulk. They are those that help the shayateen that try to go and reach to the angels and hear their discourse and their conversation. So what is that Tariq? Tariq is an-najm al-thaqib. It is the pulsating star of piercing brightness. So here, thaqib is a very beautiful characteristic of the najm. Najm means star. right? Nujum means stars. So here Thaqib is very amazing because it is literally that which is enlightened, because it pierces through a very, very small hole. And then when you pierce through a small hole, you finally reach a light. And that is what these stars are doing. And so modern science is saying, oh, those stars have died. But this Thaqib, it's light years they call it. Light years are passing, and the light of the star that has exploded is still passing us, as is mentioned in science. So imagine a night, the night as a black blanket. Imagine the night as a black blanket with a hole in it. If you cover your face with the blanket and a window is in the room with daylight, the light will pierce through the hole, and the light becomes strongly apparent and pierces through the blanket. That is the image that the Thaqib is giving. So what is this relation with the surah? Number one, I told you that this surah is about secrets, but is also mentioning about journeys. There's a journey that occurs for the Arabs, right? So the surah mentions the word taraqa, which means journeying or to describing a star. Remember Tariq? So here the surah then mentions the star's light that is piercing. The surah also shows how the star's brightness, it brightens the dark night, unveiling the secrets. So that's important, because we think that we're not, human beings are under the imagination or under the thought that they are not being watched. But even the stars will take witness, as we know that what is وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ in the previous surah, that Allah is swearing by the witness and those who are going to be witnessed on Yawm al-Qiyamah. What is going to be? The creation is going to take witness to the actions of man. That, oh, you human being, you thought at the dead of night that no one is watching you. Even the star's light is recording down what you are doing. Allah mentions Tariq in this surah. So we see that the star from a new perspective. That is one reason. So the Arabs were guided in traveling by mapping their journey through locations of the bright piercing stars. So Allah uses the psychology by making people reflect on what they already see of the world, but from a different and deeper perspective. So an example is the camels, the mountains, the stars are also mentioned by Allah repeatedly, so that when we see them, we remember what is the jawab al-qasam. In kullu nafsin lamma alayha hafiz. So I told you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath by the star, was-sama'i wat-tariq, that comes at night. So in Arabic there's something called qasam, and then there has to be a response to the qasam. It's called a jawab al-qasam. And the way that you get a jawab al-qasam is by the word inna. As you see here, inna. In kullu nafsin lamma alayha hafiz, or as we are going to see in this verse right here, innahu ala raj'ihi laqadir. Here, verse number 8. So it could be possible that any of these two verses are the jawab al-qasam. But here, in this verse, in kullu nafsin lamma alayha hafiz, and indeed, even thus, there is not a single soul, but that over it there is a guardian angel that is recording everything. So what is the hafiz? Hafiz is of two types. Hafiz could be a protector, right? A protector from any type of harm or difficulty. That's one hafiz. But another hafiz that is referring to in this verse is that who is the guardian that's recording the deeds. So some scholars have said hafiz is also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one opinion. The other opinion is that hafiz is the kiraman katibin, those two angels on the right and the left that are writing down the deeds. So one interesting point about this ayah is that it's a very unique ayah, in that it is not in the normal recitation or the qira'ah, what we call, of the Quraysh, but it's of a qira'ah of a tribe called Banu Huzayl. It's a very unique ayah because it's not in the normal dialect. Why is that important? Is because to show the miraculous nature of the Qur'an. That Rasulullah ﷺ, though he is speaking in the dialect of the Quraysh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing that it doesn't matter, it's not on Rasulullah ﷺ how the verses are going to be. That's one interesting point. So how will this verse be translated? this verse will be actually translated in two possible ways for those who are studying Arabic. This in is called in mukhaffaf min al-muthaqqal, meaning that it's not inna, but it's in. And therefore it's going to have this lam that's going to be, as you see over here, lamma. Another way to read it is lama. Lam here is going to be considered a lam lil mufaraqa, and the meme is going to be considered a ma za'id. So that's just technical terminology. Don't be worried if we're not getting it. But it's just showing that there's a deeper perspective of how the translation will be. So some few points about this ayah, alayha hafiz. So like the piercing star is staring at you in the dark of night, and it will unveil the secrets of darkness in the night, so the angels will unveil the deeds of the people on the Day of Judgment. So that's the similarity. The stars are watching us in terms of taking account of seeing us as well as the angels. And what is this word kulu? In kullu, see this word kullu? Kullu is interesting because it means everyone. So every single soul. But then there's another word in Arabic called jamia. So you might have heard like jama'ah, like all of them, a group. So another word for all in Arabic is jamia. So the question is, why mention here kullu instead of jamia? One thing about jamia is meaning all together in groups. Just like in terms of you're having groups. But when we're talking about kullu, it's encompassing literally every single soul, as opposed to groups that are like a jama'ah. Okay, so that's one small little thing. But here another thing is nafsin. Nafsin, the word nafs is used because the human keeps secrets in his nafs. The theme of the surah is secrets, right? The human being, he keeps secrets in his nafs. So it further emphasizes that every nafs is responsible only for its own self and what it hides for itself. So every single person on Yawm al-Qiyamah will be accountable for his own and her own self. And that the nafs is the place where the people, they keep their secrets. So then what? فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. Then let man consider the substance from which he is created. That look, if you realize the previous verse, which was verse number 4, if you realize that, O human beings, so then as a result, you will look to what you are created from. But if you didn't realize that every human being will be taken into account, then how will you be able to look at where you are coming from? Because you don't realize, in Ma'arif al-Qur'an by Mufti Shafi, he mentions that every human being, they come to a realization that they are being watched. They realize that somebody is watching me. But if they don't change themselves, if they don't change their actions and their ways and behaviors, then what is it? What use will it be then them realizing that what type of drop of fluid they are from? They will not take any benefit from a verse like this. So that's very important to realize, that go back and reflect on your beginnings, O human beings. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانِ. Here we see the word insan. Why is specifically the word insan used here? Is because insan, it comes from nasiya, which means to forget. And human beings are very forgetful. Especially they're very forgetful about their origins. So if they hear this message, they will either take reflection on the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them, or they'll just throw it away. They'll throw it away and they will not take any benefit from it. So what do humans do? Humans run after the fleeting road, thinking that I am so mighty and I am so high. So when he was born, but look, remember back at your beginning that you are a fluid, that when it stains the clothes, it feels like a nuisance and like a worthless goo, which we can't wait to clean up and get rid of. That's how filthy the person feels by that liquid drop. And so here in this verse we see mimma khuliq. Mimma khuliq, normally we would say mimma khuliq. Over here where we see mimma khuliq, it should be a little bit of a stretch there, an alif. But this is what is called tasghir. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the human beings, that look how small of a creation you were, being created, khuliq, that you were created, not mimma khalaq. Meaning that mimma khalaq Allah, we're going to talk about that. But look at how small of a nature that you are, that I'm not even mentioning mimma khuliq, but rather mimma khuliq. And then what is this khuliq? Khuliq here is in what we call the passive tense, that there is no one being mentioned after the verb. Usually you're going to say that, let's say if Zayd hit Amr, right? You're going to say daraba Zaydun Amran. But if you don't want to mention Zayd hit Amr, you're going to say duriba Amrun. Because you don't want to even talk to, you're very upset at Amr. And you don't even want to tell him, or you don't want to tell others that Zayd hit him. You just want to say that Zayd was hit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah is showing a feeling of anger. That now He's not bringing His lordship or His name in this surah. Rather He's addressing the disbelievers and saying, remember what you were created from. Not that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you from. That's one important point there. So what do we see, how do we see that resemblant in the Qur'an? That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He addresses Himself when He's giving favors to others, that's when you see that Allah mentions Himself. But when He's angry and upset with the human beings or the creation, then He doesn't mention Himself in those situations. An example, Surah Fatiha, when we see Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we see a verse, An'amta alayhim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored you. He favored you. An'amta alayhim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored them. And غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Allah is upset with them. Allah is upset with these people, and He doesn't mention His name there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's giving us the indication that when He's happy with the believers, He shows An'amta alayhim, that He gave the ni'mah, the blessing on them, as opposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger in the other verse. The first few verses of Surah at-Tariq were about what you couldn't see. The angel and the angel guardians that we can see, right? And the Tariq, the star from the heavens. But if you're skeptical, then this is something that you can see, so reflect. Meaning, look at that small little drop, that's something that you can see. Now reflect on your origins, O human being. خُلِقَ مِن مَّاءٍ دَافِقٍ. He is created from a water gushing forth. Ma means water. And dafiq literally means to push or gush forth. So this water then gushes through the private parts, and the liquid journeys and impregnates the female. So there's a theme. So another theme of this surah, aside from it having secrets, is the journeys that occur in this surah. So one journey is that journey that the Arab takes in the desert night. Another journey is where this drop of liquid goes through the human body. And remember, the najm is what? It's as-saqib. Remember the third ayah of the surah? Where we said, وَالسَّمَاءِ وَالطَّارِقِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الطَّارِقِ النَّجْمُ الثَّاقِبِ. Here also, there's a connection with the ma'in dafiq, that it is gushing forth. It's like literally piercing. It's piercing what we call like the zygote or the embryo, the fetus of the mother, and it reaches there and it joins, right? Literally piercing, and it's like a journey. It's a journey for that little liquid. So يَخْرُجُ مِن بَيْنِ الصُّلْبِ وَالتَّرَائِبِ, issuing from between the backbone and the breastbones. So this ayah we are going to focus on because there is a lot of beautiful commentary on this verse. Number one, Mufti Shafi Osmani, he says in his Ma'riful Qur'an that when we're talking about the liquid that originates from the human body, is that it originates from the man from the loins, and for the woman from the chest, as was the majority of the opinion. But later embryologists and science has shown that literally the whole human body has pores and has possibility of releasing through the cells or the organisms, the body itself, the liquid. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here min bayni sulbi wa taraib, He didn't mention for either man or woman, but it's general. It could be for men and women as well. So here it's interesting because the origin of human being, where is it coming from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides human beings through the blood, right? And where does the blood come from? The blood comes from the ghiza, the food. The food The food is the blood. And then the blood, from the blood, it comes, this liquid is developed. This sperm, what we call. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings all of that collectively, you can imagine it, and then it's pushed forward through the private part and into the private part of the woman. And finally reaching the womb. So a few verses ago, the Arab and non-Muslims at the time of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam were seeing the star light traveling from billions of miles away. And now a few verses later, in total contrast, he is imagining comparing how close the journey starts from where humans are produced inside the body. Subhanallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking the mind of the Arab from the heavens, and now He's bringing him down. As we saw that one of the connections between Surah Buruj and this Surah at-Tariq, bringing him down to his humble beginnings, to his lowly beginning. So soon we shall show them our signs. This is the ayah that I recited in the beginning of the lesson together. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ. Soon we will show them, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا, our signs, فِي الْآفَاقِ, in the horizons, in the skies, وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, and in themselves, حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ, until the truth becomes very clear to them. حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ. This is amazing because this is a miraculous nature of the Qur'an, that through history, so many new findings and the actual scientific findings from the Qur'an are being apparent and revealed to us on a regular basis, on a daily basis. It's amazing how much research is continuously being done. So that portion is completed. Let me just double check on the time. So we have some time together inshallah, and we will continue with the next portion. إِنَّهُ عَلَى رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. So in the previous verses that we recited up to this point, this is verse number 8. So now we've completed 7 verses. We spoke about the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls our attentions to in the skies, then in ourselves, and He's showing our weakness, right? Look at your weakness, where we can't even explore those things in totality. We can't explore the billions of the stars that are billions of years away, or the depths of even our inner selves. What's amazing about that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to our beginnings, yet science, because I'm studying at the universities, they don't even know what about 90% of the brain still functions as, or even many pathways of these cellular pathways that occur in the human body with the different enzymes. They still have not really figured it out, even though day and night they're struggling with research of millions and billions of dollars, and they still haven't come to any serious level of conclusion. Subhanallah. So innahu ala raj'ihi laqadir. No doubt He is in complete control of returning it. What is this ayah talking about? Many scholars, what do they say? They say that returning the human being back to life after death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is able to create the first time. It's easier for Him to create even a second time, and more than that. Because why? When anyone, discovers or invents a new type of machine, inventing that machine the first time is very difficult. Ask Benjamin Franklin. A lot of research has to go behind it, the physics, to create the light bulb. So what happens? Creating it after that becomes much more easier. So these same people, inna here is for those who are skeptic. In Arabic we call that izalatu shak. Inna is used when you want to remove a doubt in somebody. That's very important, the word inna. So these people are doubtful that we're never going to come back. Our secrets are never going to be revealed. When we wanted to assassinate Rasulullah ﷺ multiple times with the advice of shaitan in Darun Nadwa, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed their secrets to Prophet ﷺ. What happened with those tribes of the Banu Qurayza and Banu Nadir when they wanted to drop a boulder on Rasulullah ﷺ and when they invited him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed their secrets. What did they think? They thought still that we'll never be taken into account for all these things, even though signs and miracles were being shown to them, that how can a human being get away from all these very clear assassinations, that anyone would have died from those assassinations. إِنَّهُ عَلَىٰ رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. No doubt He is in complete control of returning it. But this is a very profound ayah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that fluid that's entering into the female, and out comes a child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about something that was dead, that fluid or that sperm, and coming out of it was that thing is alive. It's called a baby, a human. Innahu ala raj. So that's one thing. That look, on Yawm al-Qiyamah you will be brought back to life from death. And even here, a small liquid that went into the womb and it was dead, but Allah gave it life. Subhanallah. Similarly, Allah causes the dead to enter the graves, and He causes them to come to life on the Day of Judgment. So surely He can give life to the dead once again in whatever state they might be. So that's where we say, إِنَّهُ عَلَىٰ رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. No doubt He is in complete control to return it to life. يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرُ. On the day when all the inner secrets shall be revealed. The day when the secrets will be bala. Bala literally means like a tested. As we see, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكُ وَهُوَ عَلَىٰ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's testing to see who is the best in actions. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Bala is mentioned there. And what is sara'ir? Sara'ir is not like, it comes from the word sarir. Sarir, which means, it's also another word called sir. So there's two words, sarir and sir. Sir just means a normal secret. Sarir means a very well kept, guarded secret. You're trying your best. No one knows that secret. Even your best friend and your family members, your wife, no one knows that secret. But that's why sara'ir are the plural. All of the secrets. Not just one secret, but every single secret that we kept in our lives will be examined on that day. So this is important because the theme of the surah is secrecy. And the previous surah, Surah Buruj, the disbelievers were torturing the believers, right? While being witnesses, the shuhud, over what they did with them. So there was mass genocide, and there was those trenches that were dug. But what happens when nations commit mass genocide? They hide and guard the evidence of what they've done. But even these well-guarded secrets in this life will be bala, and made public and apparent on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So what do? They throw bombs, they throw acid, they throw gas on these innocent human beings, and they think that no one is watching. Because what will happen if some news journal article comes and watches them and sees what they do? The journalists, they see and they write down, then they get afraid. We can't let these secrets out. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day will reveal all of the secrets. So this surah, it began with night. The stars are at such a distance. Then what's so hard to believe that someone is a witness, a hafiz here too? So here that there's the mention that look how far the stars are, but you can hardly see them, you can only see a glimmer of light. But what's so hard about believing that there's angels on our sides? فَمَا لَهُ مِن قُوَّةٍ وَلَا نَاصِرٍ. Man will have no power and no helper on that day. If we look back on surah, the surahs before this, like Surah Naba, Surah Nazi'at, we see about the angels there. We see a lot of description about these creation called the angel. And also what do we see? We see that the disbelievers and the tyrants would have massive armies and equipments to harm the believers. And so in the previous surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, has there reached you the story of the soldiers? هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ الْجُنُودِ فِرْعَوْنَ وَثَمُودَ. About Pharaoh and the Thamud army. Why are power and helpers so important? Especially on the Day of Judgment, which the believers won't have? It's because when you guarded secrets from becoming public, you need a defense system. And power is strength for defense. So this defense includes supporters and helpers against the one who opposes you. To cover that secret, that very dark, scary secret that you don't want anyone to find out about, you need a lot of quwwah and strength, and you need helpers to cover up those secrets, right? So now, an example of this would be like someone who is in the hospital, and then his body gets uncovered, or his private parts. So then what he will do is he will try to cover it as soon as possible with as much as power that's within his capability. But what if he doesn't have that strength, that quwwah, to do that? So then they will ask someone for help. right? If you can't, you'll tell the nurse or any type of assistant that's there, please cover my body up as soon as possible. So on the Day of Judgment, the person will have no power or no helper except for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الرَّجْعِ, by the sky ever returning the rain. This is just amazing. What does this ayah mean, or what does the return mean that's in this ayah? We learned that in the Tafsir, that the sky returns rain over and over again. This word here, raj', that raj'. See, if you said was-samai ar-raj', like how we saw was-samai wat-tariq. If you said was-samai war-raj', that would have been different than saying that raj'. That raj', literally to possess that ability to do that. Like if a student, he's very, very good and he's very intellectual and he has the ability to solve problems, he will be called like the Zatul Qalam, or someone who possesses the pen. He's very remarkable, and because he can continuously do it. So here, Zatul Raj' is when the rain comes, it penetrates the earth. Number one, this is beautiful because we're talking about the stars that they're penetrating the earth at nighttime. Similarly here, in the sama, there's the rain. The rain that penetrates the earth, and then it forms rivers and oceans. And then these oceans soon will dry out and evaporate, causing the sky to return the rain which was evaporated earlier. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الرَّجْعِ. So this is an implication, as one sheikh, he mentions that the radiation is sent down from the ozone layer, and satellite signals are too. And the signal is sent from the sky to the receivers on the planet, and these signals send back a response to the satellite in space. Allahu Alam. Meaning that essentially just one opinion by a modern mufassir that the satellites, they also penetrate to the receptors here in this world. Allah knows best. وَالْأَرْضِ ذَاتِ الصَّدْعِ, and by the earth which cracks open. This refers to the cleaving and opening up, or the ripping and opening. So sada literally means like to sprout or to open. Because if you look at the seed when it's growing, it's literally open, it's cracking open. I wish I had a video here, but it's amazing when we see that opening of the seed. So the water that's coming down from the sky, it's opening up the earth. And then the water, it comes in contact with the seed, and then the seed is empowered and it grows into a plant. But if the earth refuses to tear open, let's say, if the earth refuses to tear open, there won't be any sunlight that can enter to allow the plant to produce its own food and grow. So every plant and tree that grows, it's a ripping of the earth. Literally, this land that's there, the plants and the seeds that are coming out, and the trees, they're literally ripping the ground of the earth. So Allah mentions another type of impregnation. So that's another theme of this surah, the concept of impregnation. Because impregnation, it happens very secretly. And one thing, when you're planting a seed, you don't want any type of predators to come there, otherwise it will harm the growth of that and potentially the life of that plant, and it will die. So you want to be secret of even planting. So first, it was the fluid of the male or man that was mentioned, which gushes forth, that impregnates the woman. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the fluid which comes from the sky that impregnates the earth, giving life to the plants and the trees. So in both these cases, the dead are brought back to life. That seed, if I bring you a bunch of seeds, 1,000,000 billion seeds, we can't do anything with it. It's literally dead. But who is that being that brings it back to life, who brings it to life? Subhanallah. That's something no human being can go into the ground and live with the seed and say, I'm going to make this seed grow. No one has the willpower to ever do that. It's impossible. It's out of our capacity. So that's one thing to really focus on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala parallels our creation in this verse with the creation of the plant life, since we're all made from the same creator. Subhanallah. So after these oaths, there's a response. What is that response? إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلٌ فَصْلٌ. Indeed, this Qur'an is most surely a distinguishing word. What is fasl? إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلٌ. Qawlun is referring here to the Qur'an. Fasl literally means to separate two things so far apart that you can distinguish them from each other. So imagine two brothers that are fighting. You don't want them to keep fighting, right? So you separate them very, very far. It's called fasl. Right? So another example would be where there's two intertwined branches on a tree. In order to separate those, you have to move them apart. That is also called fasl. Now, how does this, what we call jawab al-qasam, have any relation to what we mentioned before? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sends down the rain from the skies, He also sends down the revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there's not only rain that's being sent down. Revelation, the Qur'an, the ayat are being sent down in the form of wahi, revelation. The rain pours onto the earth, penetrating it, giving it life to dead plants. The same way Allah sends down revelation from the sama, from the above skies, to penetrate into the hearts of the people, giving life to the dead hearts. Subhanallah. Our hearts without the Qur'an is literally dead. And if we do not take reflection from the Qur'an, we will never have that life, and that life will result in being dead spiritually on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So we think that we may be living here in this world. We're walking, we're going with the movement and the flow of the day-to-day life. But if the person doesn't have any real concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation, he is just like any other person. One important point here, we didn't choose what era or century we are going to come in. I didn't tell my parents, make me born in 1990, 1988, whatever. It wasn't our decision. It was a decision of someone else. And that was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in all reality, we could have been born in the first century, Adam alayhi salam's time. We could have been born at the time of Musa, at the time of Isa. It wasn't our decision. It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decision. It's not something in our control. But realizing that when we're going through this flow of life, we can also die at any time. So this life, this Qur'an that's showing us that there's life, there is also the death. That is very, very inevitable. It's the greatest of truths that is going to happen and befall us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to be prepared for that time of death through acting upon the qawl and fasl, meaning the Qur'an. So in Sahih Muslim, Abu Musa radiallahu anhu reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the similitude or the example of that guidance and knowledge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exalted and glorious, has sent me is that of rain falling upon the earth. There is a good piece of land which receives the rainfall, and as a result of it, there is grown in it herbage and grass abundantly. Then there is a land hard and barren which retains water, and the people derive benefit from it, and they drink it and make the animals drink. Then there is another land which is barren, neither water is retained in it, nor is the grass grown in it. And that is the similitude of the first one who develops the understanding of the religion of Allah, and it becomes a source of benefit to him with which Allah sent me. The second one is that who acquires the knowledge of religion and imparts it to others. And the other type is the one who does not pay attention to the revealed knowledge and does not accept guidance of Allah with which I have been sent. So in this hadith of Sahih Muslim, the example is given of the rain that is referring to the revelation, the Qur'an. And reflecting on it will bring the effects on the hearts of the people. So many people have this question, why are the Muslims in the low state that they are in today? Is Allah not on our side? Na'udhu billah. The answer is to ask each and every one of us, have we left the word and the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Have we left it and are we adapting and reflecting on the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? Because if we are, then there is no problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help is qareeb. Ala inna nasrullahi qareeb. But if we are not, then know that we have no quwwatun wala nasir. We have no helper and no supporter and no strength. And all of the help is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Because He is the creator of the concept of help. Allah is an-Nasir, and He is the one who originates help. So all of us, we are going to face tests and difficulties in this life. But we need to learn that the solution or the reason for these tests is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeing how we are going to turn to Him and ask His help, as He is an-Nasir. We also get to see that the different types of people with knowledge, the fuqaha, the muhaddithin, the mufassirin, and some who don't go and to get knowledge at all. While there's the fuqaha, they extract rulings from the knowledge, and the muhaddithin, they extract rulings from the they go into the depths of hadith. They themselves might not have the knowledge to extract the rulings, but they do pass on the knowledge to others. And then we're almost completed with the surah, وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزَلِ. And it is not something that is a joke. It's not something that is a jest. And it's not something for just amusement. That, oh, we're hearing a tafsir session, we're hearing this lecture or that lecture, what new lecture or what new program is there? It's not just for that. It's the goal of all of these sessions or all of these things in a believer's life, a true believer, is to have practicality, to bring it into our lives, inshaAllah. وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزَلِ. This ma is for very strong negation. It's not just la, but ma and nafiya alal jins. It means that it's negating every single thing. When you bring ma, it leaves everything. So like if you say, ma daraba Zaydun Amran, Zayd did not hit Amr at all, ever. Like that's very, very key to understand. So hazal means being skinny or weak, therefore you are unable to do work. So Allah is telling us that this Qur'an is not worthless speech. It's not worthless speech, but it's something which produces beneficial results, like the rain that gives life, and like the star that gives light. So the fasl, it also means which leads to clear, decisive action. So that word fasl that we see here in the previous verse, it means which leads to clear and decisive action. There has to be some practicality behind it. So it's not intellectual entertainment, my brothers and sisters, which people refer to just to gain more knowledge of the world. But Qur'an is a fasl. It leads to real action based on knowledge. So this is also a threat to the disbelievers in this ayah, that this is a decisive word which will never change. So your secrets will be exposed without you having any power or helpers on the Day of Judgment. So believe or bear the consequences of your disbelief on the Day of Judgment. So we learn in the previous ayah, or in the previous surah, بَلِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فِي تَكْذِيبٍ. But they who disbelieve are in denial. And one of the ways they belie it is by saying that this is an entertaining discourse. What they were saying to Rasulullah ﷺ, oh, that speech that you're telling, that revelation there, that's just for entertainment of the Sahaba, na'udhu billah. And they also said that it's just interesting speech or interesting talk. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزَلِ. And it is not anything, it's not a thing for amusement. إِنَّهُمْ يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا. As we close, that is mentioning that don't be in doubt. But they are really plotting against you, be sure of it. So this inna, I told you, inna is when there's skepticism or a little bit of doubt. So how you're going to translate that is indeed, don't be in doubt. They are devising a plan. This has always been the case of the deniers wanting to get rid of the true message of Islam. It's not something new. It's something very, very old. It's been happening for the last 1400 years. We have a long history of people trying to attack the message of Islam. So it's not something you should be afraid of, O believers. This includes the assassination attempts, as we mentioned, on the life of Rasulullah ﷺ by the Quraysh of Makkah, as well as the Jews in Medina. So yakidun, kada yakidu literally means a secret plot. So this is following the theme of secrecy. It's not just a normal plot. So this is different from the word makar, which is also mean as plot. So you remember وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرُ اللَّهِ in Surah Al-Imran. They are plotting and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is plotting. But this yakidun is very interesting because it is a very secret plot. It's not just a makar, it's kaid. So it can be deceptive, but someone might question if Allah is really deceptive now. So someone may ask, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really deceptive? The answer is that no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not deceptive at all. He doesn't need to deceive anyone. But Allah will deceive the disbelievers. Why? When they have deceived with the believers, so Allah avenges for the Muslims because of His love for them. As we saw in the previous surah, Allah is Al-Wadud. And so Allah avenges for the Muslims because of His love for them, and He is only giving the disbelievers what they themselves do against the believers. So you think, hey, who's going to come to my aid? Who's going to come to the Muslims' aid? Those who are suffering in Syria, those who are suffering in different countries of the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make these people's plot go to no avail in the end. You'll see. Bi'iznillahi ta'ala. So kaid has it in it the element of secrecy, and makr is to avenge using deceit. Yakidun is mentioned in this surah instead of makr because yakidun is a secret plot matching with the theme of secrecy, as we had mentioned, the night star, the Tariq. And here we see kaidan, what we call maf'ul mutlaq, which gives off an emphasis. Many groups are making their secret plans and executing them. So there are many different groups out there, and they're trying to plot against you, O Muslims, because they have different ideas about how we should be removed from the face of earth. It's true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it. We're not going to deny that. So Dawoists think that they were united, but their hearts are divided. That is because they are people devoid of wisdom. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse of the Qur'an is saying that you think that they are united, that they are on one platform. But really no, that their hearts are also disunited. As soon as they get done with one Muslim side, portion of the Muslims, then they are going against each other's necks. وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. And I too am planning a plan. Allah doesn't mention inna in this verse because inna, so we saw inna in the previous verse there, innahum yakiduna kayda. Over here we don't see, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about himself, inna, because inna hints at some sort of effort that's required. Inna, it gives off like some sort of effort that's required. Allah doesn't need any effort to plot against these people. Allah simply says, I have a plan which takes over all of their plans and all of their plans. We also notice that throughout the whole surah, Allah hasn't spoken directly to the disbelievers as we had mentioned. He simply spoken to Allah's messenger and then through him to the believers. By not talking to the deniers, He's humiliating them. This is a form of humiliation to them. They're not even worth talking to. Imagine a teacher is criticizing another student for his bad behavior, but he's talking to other students instead of him directly. So he says, hey, Ahmad, but he's talking to the whole class. Ahmad, why are you doing bad? But Ahmad is on the right side, right? So this is going to make a bad student feel humiliated. The same is the case in this surah. The surah is trying to make the disbelievers feel humiliated. Change your ways. As we had seen in the previous surah, Allah is giving chance to do tawbah. And Allah, He is not someone who is not rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very, very merciful and kind. He's giving chance after chance after chance to all of these people, as we saw. Summa over there in Surah Buruj was for a time that they will live 40, 50, 60, 70 years and they'll have a chance of repentance. But they never turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in repentance. So, فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا. So give a respite to the disbelievers. Deal you gently with them for a while. What is this fa as we are closing? Fa is response to their disbelief and oppression against you and my planning against them. Meaning that fa here, as we mentioned, is to give response. Here is also as a result. As we know, fa ta'qibiyya in Arabic for those who are studying the Arabic grammar. So here, mahal means process of giving someone extra extension in their deadline. And if someone is in debt and you do tamhil, you're extending their deadline to hand you the payment. So that's usually when you're using tamhil, mahal, when you're giving someone some time to pay back his debt. So Allah tells His Messenger to go easy on the disbelievers for a little while. And the irony is that this surah is a Meccan surah when it's Allah's Messenger who's actually going through the hardship. So one interesting thing is, oh Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, oh believers, you guys are going through hardship. So what would normally be the situation? Allah will say, my help is coming immediately. But instead Allah says, give them some time. Give the enemies time to keep abusing us and harming us. But this is to give hope. This is to show the reality that your belief is increasing. This is a Meccan surah. Your iman is getting more and more powerful as the days are going, as the milliseconds are passing. And your belief in these ayat are going to come to true and reality in front of your own eyes. So some scholars have given the tafsir here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means don't get busy about avenging them, don't pray against them. So the irony here in this ayah or in this surah as a whole is that the Muslims are being oppressed. So Allah is telling His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that He is encompassing the disbelievers, as is mentioned in the previous surah, that He's muhit, He's encompassing them, He's ready to punish them. But He tells the Messenger to be relaxed on the disbelievers and give them a bit of extra time. So you shouldn't make dua against them either. like how Nuh alayhi salam did and Musa alayhi salam did for their people. This equals to Allah's messenger being in power, because if he prays against them, they will be destroyed. The power, see, so amazing. This is also going to the concept of how merciful, rahmatul lil alameen, how merciful Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to all of mankind. Because he could have easily made dua right away, oh Allah, destroy these people, they're oppressing the Sahaba and my companions who love you and who are sacrificing for your religion day and night. But Rasulullah is requested to stay even away from that as well. Amhil is repeated here for emphasis. It means let it go entirely, don't worry about it. So we see mahala, and we see mahala here. Mahilil kafirina amhilhum ruwaida. So it comes from the same root and is giving emphasis to leave it alone for a little while. But Allah doesn't keep this permanent, letting go a permanent thing. He says ruwaida at the end, give them a little bit more time. So this ruwaida just means give them a little bit more time, because Allah has already designed the plan for hijrah. Hijrah, this is very beautiful, especially now we are coming towards the times of hijrah. The new calendar is starting in next week for the 1438. 1438. It's bringing us to the realization that there is going to be a hijrah that's coming up. So however weak you think you are, the true believers are always in a situation of power. They're going to come in power once again. And the power of the dua of Allah's Messenger ﷺ would have been sufficient to wipe out the Quraysh, like we mentioned. But Allah told His Messenger to be patient for a while because of His future planning. And so this is the end of the surah. For those who had come late, just a very quick synopsis. Number one, we mentioned that this is Yawm al-Jum'ah, Friday, and many people are involved in, here in this country and different parts of the world in frivolous action. And it's like a holiday, and they think they can do anything, and they think they're hiding their sins, but all secrets on that day of Yawm al-Qiyamah will be exposed. And number one is that angels are over us, recording everything and documenting everything. And what will happen? The records will be called out on the day of judgment. And number three is all secrets will be revealed on that day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ. So always remember what will happen to you on the day of judgment. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. Our weaknesses are exposed in this surah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sizes us up in this surah to show us, look, O believers, you are from a drop of sperm. If you do not realize the nature of our origins, then on that day of Qiyamah it will be too late, as we are going to find out that what is this disbeliever is going to say? Ya laytani kuntu turaba. Oh, how I wish I was a piece of dirt. A piece of dirt. And we know that this word here, I'm going to go back. What tara'ib? Turaba, tara'ib. Dirt. Because the liquid is coming from essentially the ground, is ultimately because our food is coming from the ground, is producing the sperm. This is beautiful language of the Qur'an, that you would think 1400 years ago, after advances in science, we would have no serious connection with the words of the past. But subhanallah, this is something that should continuously increase our iman. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.